What is up, ladies and gents? This is George Bean, and for the time being, this September, having done a pretty good retrospective and tribute video on Wes Craven, I thought it'd be good to do another retrospective and tribute, this time on the late music composer James Horner. So here goes. James Horner was an American composer, conductor, and orchestrator of over 100 film scores. He was known for the integration of choral and electronic elements, and for his frequent use of motifs associated with Celtic music. He had collaborated on multiple projects with directors including Don Bluth, James Cameron, Joe Johnston, Walter Hill, and Ron Howard, and producers including George Lucas, David Kirshner, John Landau, Brian Grazer, and Steven Spielberg. Horner would formally begin his composing career with his first major score for the 1979 film The Lady in Red, which was directed by Louis Teague of Alligator fame and written by John Sayles. But this would not establish him as an eminent film composer. Come 1980, and he would score the Roger Corman-produced sci-fi film Battle Beyond the Stars. And in 1981, two particular films he would score would be Oliver Stone's horror film The Hand and Wes Craven's Deadly Blessing. Hey, I got to name drop Wes Craven in my James Horner video. Go figure. But it wasn't until 1982 when he would do the score for Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, which would make him an A-list composer. Director Nicholas Meyer quipped that Horner was hired because the studio could no longer afford the first Trek movie's composer, Jerry Goldsmith. Afterwards, Horner would continue doing high-profile film scores in the 1980s, most notably the 1982 buddy cop film 48 Hours, which was Eddie Murphy's film debut, the 1983 sci-fi drama Brainstorm, which was noted as being Natalie Wood's final film in the wake of her death by alleged drowning, the 1983 science fantasy film Crawl, Star Trek III: The Search for Spock in 1984, the 1985 Arnold Schwarzenegger action film Commando, the 1985 sci-fi drama Cocoon, and the Don Bluth animated film An American Tail. On a side note, Cocoon would be the first of 7 collaborations he'd have with director Ron Howard. In 1986, he would strike gold when he wrote the score for the sci-fi action horror film Aliens for director James Cameron. But when scoring the film on a tight schedule and under pressure, Horner and Cameron had a heated working relationship, to the point where Horner had once described this experience as a nightmare, quote-unquote, and had said that he never worked with Cameron again. But even through all that, Aliens would bring Horner his first Academy Award nomination, and his one piece titled Bishop's Countdown would become a very popular piece in his Alien score, to the point where it would be used in numerous trailers. After Aliens, Horner would then do the scores for such films as Project X, the sci-fi comedy Batteries Not Included, Ron Howard's fantasy film Willow, another Don Bluth film, The Land Before Time, and culminating in 1989 with 3 films, those being the Civil War drama Glory, the Kevin Costner baseball drama Field of Dreams, and the Disney sci-fi comedy adventure film Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which would be his first of 4 collaborations with former ILM employee turned director Joe Johnston. When 1990 rolls around, Horner would return to write the score for the sequel Another 48 Hours, before reuniting with Joe Johnston on the 1991 superhero period film The Rocketeer and the 1994 fantasy film The Page Master. In 1992 and 94, Horner would write the scores for the Jack Ryan films Patriot Games and Clear and Present Danger, both starring Harrison Ford in the title role. Also in 94, he would reunite with Glory director Edward Zwick on the historical drama film Legends of the Fall starring Brad Pitt. Horner would go on to score 6 films in 1995, those including his commercially successful and critically acclaimed works for Mel Gibson's epic drama Braveheart and Ron Howard's historical space drama Apollo 13, both of which had received Academy Award nominations. The other 1995 films included collaborating with Joe Johnston for a fourth time on the fantasy adventure film Jumanji, the fantasy comedy film Casper, and the animated film Balto. And in 1996, he'd work on both Edward Swift's war film Courage Under Fire and Ron Howard's kidnapping thriller Ransom, starring Mel Gibson. Interestingly, for very vague reasons, Horner was actually hired as a replacement for the original composer Howard Shore on Ransom, but aside from that, not much else about that fact. But still, Horner does a good job on Ransom. But, as history shows, 1997 would become a very big year for Horner, as around that time he would reunite with James Cameron 11 years after working with him on Aliens, to work on the music score for Cameron's epic historical romance film Titanic, which was slated for release in December of '97. During his tenure composing and recording the score for that film, it was Horner who suggested making a song with singer Celine Dion titled My Heart Will Go On, to accompany in the film's end credits. Despite some apprehension, Celine Dion would eventually give in and record the song, and thus birth what would become a massively popular song for years to come. At the 70th Academy Awards ceremony in March '98, Titanic would end up winning a record-tying 11 awards, including Best Director and Best Picture. But for Horner, this would be a big day for him, as being the composer for that film, he would end up winning 2 Academy Awards, one for Best Original Score and one for Best Song for My Heart Will Go On. After Titanic, Horner would go on to write the scores for 3 films in '98, those being the disaster drama Deep Impact, The Mask of Zorro, and the Disney adventure film Mighty Joe Young, which itself was a remake of the 1933 film of the same name. The only film he would write the score for in 1999 was the criminally underrated science fiction drama Bicentennial Man, starring Robin Williams. And I love the score for that film. Go watch that movie. You guys, ladies and gentlemen, must see Bicentennial. And if you have already seen it, see it again. Trust me, it's really good. Underrated. In 2000, he would score the biographical disaster drama The Perfect Storm, and would reunite with Ron Howard again on the film adaptation of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey. And in 2001, his next collaboration with Ron Howard, again, would be on the biographical drama A Beautiful Mind, which was based on the life of brilliant mathematician John Nash. And in 2002, he would work on the World War II historical drama Wind Talkers from director John Woo. In 2003, the 3 films he'd score were the semi-biographical sports drama Radio, the western thriller The Missing for Ron Howard, and finally the drama film House of Sand and Hogs, starring Jennifer Connelly and Ben Kingsley. In 2004, he would reunite with Perfect Storm director Wolfgang Petersen to write the score for his epic war film Troy, starring Brad Pitt. In 2005, he would score such films as the Jodie Foster-led airplane thriller Flight Plan, The Legend of Zorro, which was a sequel to Mask of Zorro, and finally, Terrence Malick's romantic historical drama The New World. In 2006, he would reunite with director Mel Gibson for their 3rd collaboration on Gibson's epic adventure film Apocalypto, which I had honestly rather enjoyed when I saw it several years ago. His next projects in 2008 would be the fantasy adventure film The Spiderwick Chronicles, and the World War II drama The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, both of which were somewhat moderate films. In 2009, he would collaborate with James Cameron for the third and unfortunately final time on the sci-fi epic Avatar, which would end up dethroning Cameron's previous film Titanic as the highest grossing film of all time at $2.7 billion. According to Horner, he had worked on the film's score for 2 years and had described it as quote, the most difficult film I had worked on and the biggest job I have undertaken, end quote, having claimed to have worked on from 4 in the morning to about 10 at night working on the score for that film. But through this, Avatar would bring Horner his 10th Academy Award nomination, as well as nominations for the Golden Globe Award, British Academy Film Award, and Grammy Award, all of which he lost to Michael Giacchino for Up. In post-Avatar 2010, Horner would write the score for the 2010 remake of The Karate Kid starring Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith. And then 2 years later, he would provide an actually worthy score for the 2012 reboot, The Amazing Spider-Man. But when it came to the 2014 sequel, Horner decided not to return, reasoning that he did not like the direction the studio Sony Pictures was taking the sequel compared to the first film, and he had evenly reportedly called the film quote-unquote dreadful upon seeing the film. Ouch. You know something's wrong with your movie when even James Horner calls it dreadful. But after scoring The Amazing Spider-Man, Horner would take a 3-year hiatus until scoring the 2015 adventure film Wolf Totem, of which would be his fourth collaboration with director Jean-Jacques Annaud. I think I got that right. But unfortunately, on June the 22nd of 2015, James Horner had died at the age of 61 when flying his shortcut in a single fatality crash when flying his short Tucano turboprop airplane in the Los Patros National Forest near Fentocopa, California. It was ruled as an accident, and in their post-accident investigation, the NTSB revealed that the leading cause of the accident was Horner's inability to maintain clearance from terrain during low-level air work. And they also believed that other key factors that led to the accident were Horner's use of prescription medications for high cholesterol and headaches, as toxicology testing had found beta-albuterol, codeine, and ethanol in his body. At the time of his death, Horner had scored 2 films that had yet to be released, those being the boxing drama Southpaw, directed by Antoine Fuqua, I think I got that right, of Training Day fame, of which Horner had done for free due to his love for the film, and the disaster drama The 33. Then in July, a month after his death, it was discovered that Horner had also written the score for the 2016 remake of The Magnificent Seven, planning it as a surprise for its director Antoine Fuqua. And in addition, James Cameron, when honoring Horner as a wonderful composer after his death, had said that both he and Horner were, looking forward to our next gig, end quote, meaning that Horner was actually committed to doing the scores for the in-development 4 Avatar sequels. Now, one thing to mention is that Horner was criticized for using passages from his earlier compositions and for featuring brief excerpts and reworked themes from other classical composers. Like, for example, his scores from Star Trek II and III had included excerpts from Sergei Prokofiev's Alexander Nevsky and Romeo and Juliet. For one instance, his main title for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was said to have incorporated cues from the Nina Rota score for Amarcord and Raymond Scott's piece Powerhouse B, the latter often referenced the 1930s Warner Brothers cartoon scores. It had gotten to a point where Raymond Scott's estate had threatened legal action against Disney due to his piece being used without payment or credit, and Disney had to pay the Scott estate an undisclosed sum in an out-of-court settlement and change the film's Q credits to credit Scott. But even through all this, especially in the wake of his death, many people have come out and claimed admiration for Horner as a composer, many claiming how they had spent their childhoods, including me, listening to Horner scores in past films, including Aliens and Titanic. I will say, I have become a massive fan of James Horner's work. He has become my second all-time favorite composer, behind John Williams. I'd say he has earned my respect in the music industry, and he truly has earned a top spot amongst many other well-known composers such as Williams, Alan Silvestri, and Hans Zimmer. When I had looked more into Horner's body of work, I was stunned by the amount of films that I did not even know he had scored, especially those being Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Jumanji, and even Commando. I really love his Honey, I Shrunk the Kids score. It sounds very catchy, and it was very memorable to listen to. It had only shocked me when I found out that he did that score. I would hum to that score all the time. I had realized that I had spent a majority of my childhood listening to Horner's work in movies. As a young kid, I had always been entrenched in listening to his Titanic score ever since I first saw the film at a very young age. It was always something about his film scores that had made them seem catchy to listen to when I grew up on them. So I am happy to have lived in the era of James Horner while I had the chance. I'm still very saddened by Horner's death. I still remember that day when the news first broke that a small plane had crashed and that it was registered to James Horner. I had thought, no, it can't be him. But unfortunately, it was, and Horner was pronounced dead, and it had rocked me to the core. It was like yet another stab in the heart. He was taken very too soon from the world. What worries me the most is that with Horner gone, I wonder who is now going to take over the scoring duties for the Avatar sequels. Horner's score for Avatar 1 is one of the huge reasons I'll still happily watch this movie. I just wonder if it is going to sound and feel different from how Horner had done it. I just hope that whoever is hired to score the sequels at least keep Horner in mind and try to honor what he had created in the first film. But still, I am happy to have grown up watching movies that were scored by James Horner. His scores have been very memorable and catchy to listen to during my childhood. And so yes, I am very happy to admire his work. And if I end up in any conversation about him, I would happily reflect about him in a positive light. So I bid James Horner a rest in peace. He has been sorely missed, even when it has been 3 years since his untimely death. So thank you for watching, ladies and gents, and of course I will still be making reviews for the upcoming Shocktober season next month. So expect some videos from me next month, in October, or Shocktober. So once again, thanks for watching, and until then, I will see you all next time. Peace!